The hospital security footage shows the exact moment Derek Westbrook's life imploded. 3:42 p.m. His wife Claire is screaming in the delivery room, giving birth to their triplets. And Derek, he's in the parking garage, buying an engagement ring for his mistress with their IVF money. But here's what Derek didn't know. A nurse caught everything on camera. The text, the lead, the betrayal, and what happened next. Let's just say there's a reason this story has over 15 million views. If you love justice served ice cold, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done, and subscribe because this story gets wild. Trust me, you won't see this ending coming. Let's begin. The hospital security footage would later show the exact moment Derek Westbrook destroyed his life. 3:42 p.m., parking garage level 3, phone pressed to his ear, diamond ring box visible in his other hand. The ring is perfect. Baby. Can't wait to put it on your finger tonight. 2 floors above him, his wife Claire screamed as their first child entered the world. I'm going to tell you a story that will make you question everything you think you know about the people you love, about the masks we wear and the lies we tell, about a woman who gave birth to 3 miracles while her husband planned his escape. This is my story. My name is Claire Westbrook, and this is how my life ended and began on the same day. The contractions started at 7:30 that morning. 8 years of marriage, 4 years of fertility treatments, $127,000 spent on in vitro fertilization, and finally, 3 tiny heartbeats growing inside me. My miracle babies. Our miracle babies. Derek was humming in the shower when my water broke. I heard his phone buzzing on the nightstand. Over and over, the screen lit up with notifications. Can't wait for tonight. I love you so much. Today changes everything. I told myself they were work messages. I'd been telling myself a lot of things for the past 6 months. About the new cologne he wore, the gym membership he suddenly needed, the designer suits that appeared in his closet, the way he smiled at his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. Derek, I called out, gripping the door frame as another contraction hit. It's time. He emerged from the bathroom, towel around his waist, looking annoyed, not excited, not thrilled. Annoyed? Now, are you sure? My water just broke. I'm sure. He glanced at his phone, typed something quickly, then finally looked at me. Okay, let me get dressed. The drive to the hospital should have been filled with excitement and fear and joy. Instead, Derek ran a red light while texting, barely noticing when I screamed in pain. Sorry, babe. Just telling the office I'll be unavailable. But I saw the name on his screen before he turned it away. Not office, not his boss. Just a letter. At the hospital, my best friend Jenna met us in the labor room. She's an ER nurse. Worked the night shift. Came straight to me still in her scrubs. She took one look at Derek on his phone in the corner and her jaw tightened. Where were you? She whispered to me. He had to get coffee, I said, even though he'd been gone 45 minutes. The contractions came faster, 2 minutes apart. Then 1 minute, baby B's heart rate started dropping. The doctor made the call, emergency cesarean section. They wheeled me to the operating room, and Derek followed, phone still in his hand. That's when Nurse Beth Carter saw it. She was positioning the IV pole, standing at just the right angle to see Derek's phone screen reflected in the glass medical cabinet. She saw him typing while the doctor made the first incision, saw the message he sent while they lifted our first daughter into the world. Got the ring, engraved just like you wanted. Tonight we celebrate our future. The recipient name showed clearly in that reflection. Amber S. Beth pulled out her Apple Watch and took a photo of that reflection. Time-stamped 3:44 p.m., the exact moment our son Mason was born and needed oxygen support. I didn't know any of this yet. I was on the table, numb from the chest down, watching my babies being lifted into the world. 3 perfect children. Lily first, screaming in pink, then Mason struggling to breathe. The medical team rushing him to oxygen, then Harper, strong and loud. I looked for Derek. He was in the hallway, phone to his ear, smiling. Not at his babies, at whoever was on that call. The recovery room was quiet except for the machines monitoring my vital signs. Jenna sat beside my bed, holding my hand while the babies were in the NICU being evaluated. Derek had disappeared again. More calls? He'd said, "Work emergency." "Claire, Jenna said softly. "Nurse Beth needs to talk to you." Beth came in, her face pale, holding her phone. "Mrs. Westbrook, I saw something during the delivery. Something you need to know." She showed me the photo, the reflection in the glass cabinet, Derek's phone screen, the text message, the timestamp, 3:44 p.m., while Mason struggled to breathe. The ring is perfect, worth every penny of that IVF money. The world stopped spinning. Everything went silent except for the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. "There's more," Beth said gently. She showed me the full text chain visible in that reflection. Messages between Derek and someone named Amber, planning their future, their engagement, their life together. "After the babies are born, I'll file for divorce. She'll be too tired to fight." I started shaking. Couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Jenna grabbed my hand tighter. "What do you need? Tell me what you need." I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers. Opened our bank app. Joint savings account. $47,000 last month. Now $84.37. The IVF loan account, zero. My inheritance fund from my mother, closed. 3 transfers over the past 6 months, all to the same place. A. Sinclair rent, $4,500 per month. He'd stolen everything. Every penny we'd saved. Every dollar of my mother's money. All of it gone. Derek walked back into my hospital room holding a coffee, smiling like nothing in the world was wrong. "How are my champion and my babies doing?" I stared at him, really looked at him for the first time in months. The expensive haircut, the new watch, the cologne that cost more than our monthly grocery bill, all of it purchased with money he'd stolen from our children's future. "Where were you?" My voice came out flat, dead. "Making some important calls, work stuff. You know how it is." He sat down, pulled out his phone again. "Show me your phone." He looked up, confusion crossing his face, then suspicion. "What? Your phone? Show it to me." "Claire, you're being hormonal. You just had major surgery. You need to rest." "Show me your phone." Derek. His face changed. The mask slipped for just a second, and I saw something cold underneath, something I'd never seen before. "I don't need this right now. I've been here all day, supporting you. You've been here texting your mistress while our son struggled to breathe." The silence that followed was deafening. Derek stood up slowly, pocketing his phone. "You're clearly not well. I'm going to talk to your doctor about postpartum psychosis." He walked out, didn't deny it, didn't defend himself, just left. Jenna pulled out her phone. "I'm calling Malcolm Pierce. He's a divorce attorney, former military. He doesn't lose." "Call him, Hassan," I said, staring at the empty doorway. "Call him right now." Malcolm Pierce arrived at the hospital within 2 hours, tall, gray-haired, with eyes that missed nothing. He sat in the chair beside my bed and listened while I told him everything. Showed him Beth's photo, showed him the bank accounts, showed him 6 months of red flags I'd ignored because I wanted to believe my marriage was real. "This is good," Malcolm said, studying Beth's photo. "Time-stamped, contextualized, undeniable. Mrs. Westbrook, I need to ask you something. How far do you want to take this? All the way," I said without hesitation. "I want him destroyed. Then we move fast. Emergency custody petition filed tomorrow. Asset freeze. Restraining order preventing any further transfers. And we start digging into his finances because men like Derek Westbrook don't stop at one secret. There's always more." He was right. There was so much more. The next morning, while I was learning to breastfeed 3 premature babies in the NICU, Malcolm's investigator was pulling Derek's financial records. Credit card statements, bank transfers, travel receipts. Malcolm came back at noon with a folder full of documents. "Claire, your husband didn't just steal from you. He embezzled from his law firm. $347,000 from client escrow accounts over the past year." I felt dizzy. "What?" "He's been running money through shell accounts, covering it with false billing, using it to fund an apartment downtown, buy jewelry, take trips. Everything traced back to one person, Amber Sinclair, his paralegal." "His paralegal." I laughed, but it sounded broken. Of course she is. There's more. The apartment lease, it's in both their names, co-signed 4 months ago, while you were 6 months pregnant. That afternoon, Derek's mother, Diane, came to visit. She swept into my hospital room wearing Chanel and carrying flowers, ready to meet her grandchildren. Then she saw my face. Claire, sweetheart, what's wrong? I showed her everything. Every text message, every bank statement, every piece of evidence that her son had been living a double life while I carried his children. Diane Westbrook was a CEO. She'd built a Fortune 500 company from nothing. She didn't cry. She didn't make excuses. She looked at the evidence, looked at me, and made a decision. What do you need? I need you to testify against him. She didn't hesitate. I'll do it. And Claire, I'm removing him from the family trust effective immediately. He won't see a penny. The custody hearing happened fast. Malcolm filed emergency motions, and the judge agreed to see us within 48 hours. Derek showed up with his own lawyer, looking confident, smug, even. The judge was a woman in her late 50s, stern and no nonsense. She reviewed the evidence in silence. Beth's photo, the bank statements, the apartment lease. Derek's face went from confident to pale. Mr. Westbrook, the judge said, do you have anything to say? Your Honor, my wife is clearly suffering from postpartum depression. She's making wild accusations. I'm looking at a photograph time-stamped during your children's birth, showing you texting about an engagement ring. I'm looking at bank statements showing you transferred nearly $50,000 to another woman while your wife was pregnant with triplets. I'm looking at a lease agreement with your name and your paralegal's name, dated 4 months ago. Which part is a wild accusation? Derek's lawyer tried to object. The judge shut him down. Emergency custody granted to Mrs. Claire Westbrook. Mr. Westbrook, you will have supervised visitation only, 2 hours per week. All joint assets are frozen pending full financial disclosure. This court will reconvene in 2 weeks for a full hearing. Derek exploded. This is bullshit. Those are my kids. You can't do this. The bailiff had to physically restrain him. The judge added contempt of court to his growing list of problems. I left that courthouse feeling like I could breathe for the first time in days. Jenna drove me home with the babies in their car seats, all 3 sleeping peacefully. We installed new locks, set up security cameras, made the house ours again. It's going to be okay now, I whispered to Lily, Mason, and Harper that night. He can't hurt us anymore. I was wrong. I should have known Derek wouldn't accept defeat. Men like him never do. They double down. They fight dirty. They burn everything to the ground rather than admit they lost. 3 days after the emergency custody hearing, I got an email from Human Resources at my job. The subject line read, Position Elimination Notice. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Ms. Westbrook, due to corporate restructuring and budget constraints, your position as marketing director has been eliminated effective immediately. Your final paycheck and accrued vacation pay will be direct deposited within 30 days. Thank you for your service. $85,000 a year, gone. Jenna looked over my shoulder at the email. Wait, who's the CEO of your company? The name hit me like a freight train. Marcus Brennan, Derek's college roommate. That son of a... Jenna grabbed her phone. I'm calling Malcolm right now. But Malcolm was already calling me. Claire, we have a problem. Derek filed a counter petition this morning. He's claiming you're mentally unstable, that you have severe postpartum depression, and you're a danger to the babies. What? That's insane. He has evidence, ring camera footage of you, quote, screaming at the babies, a sworn affidavit from a psychiatrist named Dr. Gregory Vaughn stating you're a danger to yourself and others. I've never even met a Dr. Vaughn. In that footage, I was crying during a feeding because Mason wouldn't latch. I wasn't screaming at him. I know, Malcolm said grimly, but Derek's playing a different game now. He's hired one of the best family law attorneys in the state. They're going for full custody. Emergency hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them taking my babies away. Saw Harper's tiny face, Mason's struggle to breathe, Lily's first smile, all of it slipping through my fingers. At 2 a.m., I got up and checked on them, all 3 sleeping in their bassinets, peaceful and perfect. I picked up Mason, held him close, breathed in that newborn smell. "I won't let him take you," I whispered. "I won't let him win." The custody hearing was brutal. Derek's attorney painted me as an unstable, vindictive woman using the children as weapons, showed the edited ring camera footage, read Dr. Vaughn's affidavit declaring I was suffering from severe postpartum psychosis. Malcolm fought back hard, showed the Judge Beth's photo, showed the financial records, showed proof that Dr. Vaughn had never actually met me, that Derek had paid him $50,000 for that affidavit. But Derek's attorney had something we didn't expect: character witnesses. 3 couples from our church, people I'd considered friends, all testifying that I'd seemed erratic and unstable during my pregnancy, that I'd made paranoid accusations about Derek, that I'd isolated myself. All lies, but they sounded so sincere. The judge looked tired, overwhelmed. Given the conflicting testimony and the serious nature of these allegations, I'm ordering a full custody evaluation. During this evaluation period, both parents will have supervised visitation only, 2 hours per week each. The children will be placed in temporary foster care pending completion of the evaluation in 6 to 8 weeks. No, the word tore out of me. Please, Your Honor, please don't take my babies. Mrs. Westbrook, this is temporary, for their safety. They need me. Mason needs his breathing treatments every 4 hours. Harper has reflux. Lily, the bailiff touched my arm. Ma'am, you need to calm down. I watched through tears as they documented everything for the foster placement, watched as they loaded my 3 tiny babies into a social worker's car, watched my entire world disappear down the street. I collapsed on the courthouse steps. Jenna caught me before I hit the ground. That's when I realized Derek had won. He'd figured out the one thing that would destroy me completely: taking my children. That night, alone in my house for the first time since the babies were born, I sat in their empty nursery and tried to understand how I'd gotten here, how the man I'd loved, the man I'd built a life with, could be this cruel. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You thought you won. You haven't seen what losing looks like. I'll take everything from you." I showed it to Malcolm the next morning. He traced it to a burner phone purchased with cash. Untraceable. "It's him," I said. "Or her. Or both of them. We'll get them. Claire, I promise you. But right now, we focus on the custody evaluation. We play by the rules. We show them you're the stable parent. But how do you prove you're stable when your entire life is falling apart?" The custody evaluator was a woman named Dr. Patricia Moss. She came to my house, asked 1,000 questions, took notes on everything. How did I feel about Derek, about Amber? About the situation I wanted to scream, wanted to rage, wanted to tell her that my husband was a lying, cheating, embezzling criminal who'd built an entire second life while I carried his children. But I knew that's not what she wanted to hear. So I said what I was supposed to say, that I wanted what was best for the children, that I hoped Derek would get help, that I was in therapy, taking my vitamins, sleeping when I could. All the right words, all the appropriate emotions. She seemed satisfied. 3 days later, my house burned down. The fire department called me at 8:17 p.m. By the time I got there, flames were shooting through the roof. Everything I owned, every baby photo, every piece of furniture we'd carefully chosen for the nursery, my mother's jewelry, the only thing I had left of her. All of it. Gone. The fire marshal met me on the lawn as firefighters sprayed water onto what used to be my home. "Mrs. Westbrook, I need to inform you that accelerant was used. This was arson." The word hung in the air between us. Arson. Someone had deliberately burned down my house. My phone buzzed. Another text from that unknown number. "This is just the beginning." Malcolm met me at a hotel at midnight. He'd gotten the preliminary fire marshal's report. They found evidence of gasoline in 3 locations. Professional job. Time to make sure you weren't home. How did they know I wouldn't be home? That's what worries me. Malcolm pulled up Derek's credit card statements. "Look at this. $5,000 payment to a contractor named Jake Morrison. Same day as the fire. I'm betting when we dig into Mr. Morrison's background, we'll find some interesting connections. Derek burned down my house. We can't prove it yet, But yes, I think so. I sat on the hotel bed, staring at the wall. Everything was gone. My home, my Toby Bob, my children. What else could he possibly take from me? The custody evaluation hearing was scheduled for the next morning. I showed up wearing clothes Jenna had bought me, carrying nothing but my phone and wallet. Everything else was ash. Derek was already there with his attorney. He looked at me with something like satisfaction, like he'd won. The judge reviewed Dr. Moss's evaluation report in silence. Then she looked up at both of us. Dr. Moss has completed her evaluation. However, given recent events, specifically the fire at Mrs. Westbrook's residence and ongoing questions about Mr. Westbrook's financial activities, I'm postponing my custody decision. I want both of you to undergo additional psychological evaluations. I want financial forensic audits, and I want answers about this fire. Derek's attorney stood. Your Honor, we'd like to call a witness, Ms. Amber Sinclair. My blood went cold. Amber walked into the courtroom, and I saw her in person for the first time. Young, blonde, pretty, and visibly pregnant. She took the stand, placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Then she lied. Derek told me his wife had abandoned their children, she said, tears streaming down her face. He said she was mentally ill, that she'd threatened to hurt the babies and herself. He's been trying so hard to protect them. Objection. Malcolm was on his feet. This is complete fabrication. But Amber kept talking. I've been helping him care for the babies because they need a stable mother figure. I've been there for every feeding, every diaper change. I love those children like they're my own. She submitted evidence. Text messages, supposedly from me, threatening to harm the babies. Photos of Derek with the babies during his supervised visits. A timeline showing how much time he'd spent trying to be a good father. All of it carefully constructed. All of it false. The judge looked at me. Mrs. Westbrook, do you have anything to say? I stood up, even though Malcolm was trying to pull me back down. She's lying, all of it. Those aren't my text messages. Derek created a fake number, and she didn't help with any feedings because I've been locked out of the supervised visitation. She's never even met my children. That's not true, Amber sobbed. I have photos. Photos from where the NICU, because Derek wasn't allowed to take anyone with him to supervise visits. So unless you broke into the hospital, the judge held up her hand. Enough, I need time to review all this new evidence. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks. Until then, the current custody arrangement stands. I walked out of that courtroom feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Malcolm caught up with me in the hallway. She committed perjury. Blatant. Obvious perjury. Can we prove it? We're going to try. That's when Nurse Beth found us. She was breathing hard, like she'd been running. Mrs. Westbrook, I have something. I didn't know if I should, but after what just happened in there, she pulled out a USB drive. Hospital IT department. Derek used the guest Wi-Fi during your delivery. They keep logs of everything. I asked a friend to pull it as data. Malcolm took the drive carefully. What's on it? Every text message he sent that day. And for 8 months before, 2,847 messages between him and Amber Sinclair, including ones where they planned exactly what happened in that courtroom today. Malcolm smiled for the first time since I'd met him. Beth, you're a miracle worker. There's more, Beth said. Proof that Amber knew Derek was married. Proof they planned the fake text messages. Proof of everything. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. What do we do now? I asked Malcolm. Now, he held up the USB drive. Now we go nuclear. Malcolm spent 3 days analyzing every message on that USB drive. He called me on the 4th day, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. Claire, sit down. I'm already sitting. Derek and Amber have been planning this for 11 months. Before you even got pregnant with the triplets. The room tilted. What? The messages start last January. Amber was already his paralegal. They were having an affair. Then you did the IVF. The messages show him telling her not to worry, that once the babies were born, he'd divorce you, claim you were mentally unstable, get full custody, and they'd raise the children together. So this was always the plan. It was always the plan. Everything the money transfers, the apartment, the fake evidence, all of it was premeditated. And Claire, there's something else. Something worse. What could possibly be worse? The fire, yeah. There are messages from 2 days before it happened. Derek wrote to Amber, time to remove her safety net. She needs to have nothing left to fight with. Then a payment to someone named Jake Morrison. Then a message, house problem solved. I couldn't breathe. He tried to burn me out of my own life. He tried to erase you, Malcolm said quietly. But he made a mistake. He documented everything. And now we have all of it. Malcolm filed an emergency motion. Criminal charges, fraud, embezzlement, arson, conspiracy, perjury. The district attorney's office got involved. The FBI. Derek's law firm started their own investigation and discovered the missing client funds. Everything unraveled fast. The judge who'd been handling our custody case recused herself, citing the new criminal allegations. The case got transferred to Judge Rita Holloway. I didn't recognize the name at first. Then Malcolm showed me her photo and my breath caught. That's Professor Holloway. She taught my criminal law class in college. I didn't know she'd become a judge. Do you think she'll remember you? I don't know. Duh. It was 15 years ago. Judge Holloway did remember me. When I walked into her courtroom for the emergency hearing, she looked right at me, and something in her expression softened for just a moment. Then her face went neutral again. Professional, impartial. But I'd seen that flicker of recognition. The hearing lasted 6 hours. Malcolm presented everything. The text messages, the financial records, the arson evidence. Beth testified about what she'd witnessed. The IT specialist testified about the Wi-Fi logs. Derek's attorney tried to fight back, but there was nothing to fight with. The evidence was overwhelming. Then it was Amber's turn on the stand. Malcolm was merciless during cross-examination. Ms. Sinclair, you testified 2 weeks ago that Derek told you his wife had abandoned their children. Is that correct? Yes. And you said you'd been helping care for the babies. Correct. Yes. Malcolm pulled up a text message on the screen. Then can you explain this message from you to Derek, dated 3 weeks ago? Quote, when are you finally going to leave your wife? I'm tired of being the secret. End quote. Amber's face went pale. That message clearly indicates you knew Derek was still married, still living with his wife, still actively in that relationship. So you lied under oath, didn't you? I didn't mean... Did Derek Westbrook tell you he was married when you started your affair? Silence. Miss Sinclair, you're under oath. Did Derek tell you he was married? Yes. The word came out as a whisper. Did you know the engagement ring he gave you was purchased with money from his children's medical fund? No, he told me. She stopped, realizing her mistake. He told you what? Amber started crying. Real tears this time, not the performance from before. He told me it was from his business bonus. He said his ex-wife was crazy, that she was making his life hell, that he just needed to get through the custody stuff and then we could be together. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. You didn't know he was stealing from his law firm? No. You didn't know he was embezzling client funds? No. But you did know about the fake text messages used as evidence, didn't you? Because you're copied on several messages where you and Derek discussed creating them, her lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Amber broke. He told me we had to do it, that his wife was trying to take his children away out of spite, that we needed to protect the babies. I believed him. I believed everything he told me. Then Derek took the stand. He'd been coached well, stayed calm, answered questions carefully, maintained his innocence. Said Amber was mistaken, that the messages were taken out of context, that he'd never embezzled anything. Malcolm let him talk, let him build his defense. Then he played a video. Mr. Westbrook, do you recognize this jewelry store? That looks like Tiffany's. Yes. This is security camera footage from October 14th, 1 week before your triplets were born. Do you recognize the man in this video? On the screen, Derek stood at a counter, pointing to a ring. The audio was clear. This is for my fiancée. My ex-wife and I are finally done, and I want to celebrate with something special. Derek's face went white. That's you, isn't it? Mr. Westbrook telling a jewelry store clerk that your wife was your ex-wife 1 week before she gave birth to your children. I was, that was a mistake. I misspoke. You misspoke, or you were already living your life with Amber Sinclair while your pregnant wife was at home. Derek's composure cracked. She deserved it. Claire got boring, she got fat and obsessed with the babies and stopped caring about me. Amber was better. Amber actually wanted me. The courtroom went silent. Malcolm smiled coldly. No further questions, Your Honor. Judge Holloway looked at Derek for a long moment. Mr. Westbrook, you're in contempt of this court. Bailiff, please take him into custody. Derek exploded, started screaming about unfairness, about conspiracy, about how I turned everyone against him. 3 bailiffs had to drag him out. Judge Holloway waited until the courtroom was quiet again. Then she looked at me. Mrs. Westbrook, I remember you from my criminal law class. You were one of my best students. Smart, principled, thorough. I have no doubt that woman is still who you are, and I've seen enough evidence today to make my ruling. She turned to where Derek had been sitting. The court finds that Mr. Derek Westbrook has committed fraud, embezzlement, arson conspiracy, and perjury. Criminal charges will proceed separately. In the matter of custody, full physical and legal custody is awarded to Claire Westbrook. Mr. Westbrook's parental rights are suspended until the children reach age 18, at which point they may choose whether to have contact with him. My knees went weak. Jenna caught me. Furthermore, Judge Holloway continued, Mr. Westbrook is ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $850,000, covering stolen funds, damages, legal fees, and emotional distress. Ms. Amber Sinclair will be charged as an accessory to fraud and will serve 2 years probation. The gavel came down. It was over. I walked out of that courtroom and straight to the foster home where my babies had been staying. The social worker had already gotten the call. Lily, Mason, and Harper were waiting for me. I held all 3 of them at once, crying into their soft hair. I'm here, Mama's here, I'm never letting you go again. That night, Derek was arrested at his apartment, the one he'd been paying for with stolen money. He went quietly, according to the police report. All the fight had gone out of him. He was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. He served 4. I never saw him again after that courtroom. Never answered his letters from prison. Never took his calls. He stopped trying after a year. Amber Sinclair completed her probation, moved to another state, and from what I heard, got married to someone else. I hope she learned something from the experience. I hope she found happiness, but I never wanted to know for sure. Some doors, once closed, should stay locked forever. The first month after the trial was a blur. Moving into a rental house with 3 infants, learning to be a single mother while recovering from everything that had happened, learning to trust again that the world wouldn't collapse every time I turned around. Diane Westbrook became my unexpected ally. She visited weekly, brought groceries, helped with the babies. One afternoon, while Harper slept in her arms, she said, I failed as a mother. I raised a monster. I'm so sorry, Claire. You didn't make his choices. No, but I taught him that success mattered more than character. That winning was everything. I see that now. She looked down at Harper. Let me help you raise these 3. Let me show them what I should have shown Derek. Please. Yeah, I agreed. Not for Derek's sake, but because Lily, Mason, and Harper deserved a grandmother who loved them. And Diane did. Fiercely. Malcolm Pierce helped me rebuild my finances. Derek's restitution payments started coming in, garnished from his prison wages. Diane set up education trusts for all 3 babies. Substantial ones. My job situation resolved when Marcus Brennan's illegal termination of my position led to his own resignation and a settlement that included my rehire with a promotion. But money wasn't what I needed most. What I needed was to learn how to be whole again, how to trust my own judgment after trusting someone so completely wrong. I started therapy, twice a week at first, then once, worked through the trauma, the betrayal, the guilt of not seeing it sooner. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, had a way of asking questions that made me think differently about everything. You keep saying you should have known, she said during one session. But Claire is He spent years lying to you, years building this false reality. How were you supposed to see through that? There were signs. Maybe. Or maybe you're looking at the past through the lens of the present. Maybe at the time, those things weren't signs at all. They were just pieces of life that only make sense when you know how the story ends. That helped. Slowly, one day at a time, Jenna was there through all of it. She'd been there since the beginning, and she never wavered. The night I moved into the rental house, she showed up with pizza and wine and helped me assemble 3 cribs while the babies slept in their car seats. "I still want to punch him," she said, struggling with an Allen wrench. "Get in line." "I'm serious. When he gets out of prison, I might actually do it. He's not worth it." "You're right, but it would feel good." We laughed. It felt strange to laugh, but good. The babies grew. Lily started smiling at 8 weeks, this huge gummy grin that lit up her whole face. Mason grew stronger, his breathing issues resolved, and he became the serious one, studying everything with those dark blue eyes. Harper was the wild child, already trying to roll over, always moving, always curious. I took so many photos, filled albums with every smile, every milestone, every moment, building the record of their lives, the real record, not the one Derek had tried to write. 6 months after the trial, I got an email from Derek, sent through the prison system, forwarded by my attorney. "Claire, I know you probably won't read this, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry, but no, I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't change what I did, but I am sorry. I was selfish and cruel, and I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. You deserve better. The babies deserve better. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I finally see what I threw away." Derek, I read it 3 times, waited for some feeling, anger, satisfaction, something. Felt nothing. I deleted it. 3 months later, I got another one, then another. Every few weeks, a new email, each one more desperate than the last, begging to see the babies, promising he'd changed, swearing he'd spend the rest of his life making it up to us. I never responded. Eventually, they stopped coming. The baby's first birthday fell on a sunny Saturday in October. I rented a room at the community center, invited Jenna, Diane, Malcolm, Nurse Beth, and a few other friends who'd supported us. 3 cakes, 3 high chairs, 3 tiny humans covered in frosting. Lily got cake in her hair. Mason ate his methodically, one handful at a time. Harper threw hers on the floor and laughed. I took a photo of all 3 of them, messy and happy, and posted it online with the caption, "1 year ago, I became a mother. Today, I celebrate 3 miracles." The comments flooded in, friends I hadn't talked to in months, former colleagues, people I'd gone to college with, all celebrating with me, all telling me how strong I was, how proud they were. But sitting there went on, watching my babies smash cake and babble at each other. I didn't feel strong. I felt lucky. Lucky to have them. Lucky to have survived. Lucky to have another chance at building a life. That's when I met Tyler Grant. He was at the community center with his 2 daughters, 7-year-old Emma and 9-year-old Sophia. Their birthday party was in the room next to ours. He knocked on our door looking embarrassed. "Sorry to interrupt. My daughter's balloon floated into your room." I looked up and saw a red balloon bobbing against our ceiling. "No problem." I grabbed it, handed it to him. "Birthday party." "Yeah, 9 years old today. Time flies." He looked at my 3 cake-covered babies. "Triplets." "Yeah, 1-year-old today." "Wow, that must be intense." "That's one word for it." He smiled. Nice smile. Tired eyes. "I'm Tyler." "Claire." We talked for a few minutes. He told me he was a widower. His wife had died from cancer 3 years ago. He was raising the girls alone, trying to figure it out one day at a time. I understood that. The trying to figure it out. The one day at a time. He asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. Not a date, just coffee. 2 single parents commiserating. I surprised myself by saying yes. We met at a coffee shop 2 weeks later. No kids, just us. talked for 3 hours about everything and nothing, about how hard it was doing it alone, about the guilt and the fear and the moments when you weren't sure you were doing any of it right. Sometimes I'm just surviving, Tyler said, getting them fed, getting them to school, making sure they brush their teeth. Is that enough? I think surviving is underrated. I said, I think some days just making it through is everything. We met again and again. Coffee became lunch. Lunch became dinner. Slowly, carefully, we built a friendship. I wasn't ready for more than that. Wasn't sure I'd ever be ready. But Tyler was patient. He understood that trust was something you had to earn, not something you could demand. 8 months after that first coffee, I introduced him to the babies. They were 18 months old by then, walking, starting to talk, full of personality. Tyler brought Emma and Sophia. The 5 kids played together in my living room while Tyler and I watched, ready to intervene if things got chaotic. They're beautiful, Tyler said, watching Lily try to share her toy with Emma. You're doing an amazing job with them. Most days I feel like I'm barely holding it together. Yeah, but you're still holding it. That counts. 2 months later, Tyler asked me on an actual date. Dinner. Just the two of us. Jenna agreed to babysit all 5 kids. Somehow, I said yes. That first date was awkward. I'd forgotten how to do this. How to talk to someone as a woman, not just as a mother. How to think about myself as someone who might have a future that included romance. But Tyler made it easy. He didn't push, didn't expect anything, just talked and listened and made me laugh. At the end of the night, he walked me to my car. I had a really good time. Me too. Can we do this again? I looked at him, really looked at him, saw someone kind, someone patient, someone who understood loss and survival and building something new from broken pieces. Yeah, I said, I'd like that. We dated slowly, carefully. He met Diane, who approved, met Jenna, who interrogated him for an hour before deciding he was acceptable, met Malcolm, who probably ran a background check but never told me about it. A year after that first coffee shop meeting, Tyler and I were talking about moving in together, blending our families, building something new. Are you sure? I asked him one night. 3 toddlers plus 2 elementary schoolers is a lot of chaos. Claire, alors you found. I lost my wife. You lost your marriage? We both know life doesn't come with guarantees. But I know I want to spend whatever time I have with you, with all of you, if you'll have me. I thought about Derek, about how I'd loved him completely, trusted him absolutely, and been destroyed by that trust. Then I thought about Tyler, about how he'd never asked me to trust blindly, about how he'd earned every bit of trust I'd given him, slowly, through consistent actions over time. Yes, I said, I'll have you. We bought a house together, big enough for 7 people, chaotic and loud and messy and perfect. Lily, Mason, and Harper called Tyler Tyler at first. Then one day, Harper called him Daddy Tyler, then just Daddy. He cried when that happened. Later, he told me it was one of the best moments of his life. Emma and Sophia called me Claire for longer. That was okay. I wasn't trying to replace their mother. I was just trying to be someone who loved them. Eventually, they started calling me Mama Claire, then sometimes just Mama. That was okay too. We got married 2 years after that first coffee shop meeting, small ceremony in our backyard, 5 kids as our wedding party, Diane officiating, Jenna as my maid of honor, Malcolm in the front row, smiling like a proud father. Judge Holloway sent a gift, a card that read, "Congratulations on your new beginning. You earned it." Rita, standing there in my backyard, watching Tyler smile at me, listening to our 5 kids giggling behind us. I realized something. Derek had tried to destroy me, tried to take everything, and for a while he'd succeeded. But I'd built something better from the ruins, something real, something honest, something mine. 4 years after that courthouse victory, life had found a rhythm I never could have imagined. The triplets were 5 years old now, preparing for kindergarten. Emma and Sophia were thriving. Tyler and I had built something I'd once thought impossible, a functional, happy, blended family. Most days were ordinary. School drop-offs and pickups, homework help, soccer practice, dance recitals, family dinners where all five kids talked over each other, movie nights where we couldn't agree on anything, so we watched three different shows in three different rooms. But some days reminded me of where we'd been. Like the day Lily asked about her biological father. She was sitting at the kitchen table coloring. Her tongue stuck out in concentration the way it always did when she was focused. Harper and Maiden were building with blocks nearby. Mama, Lily said without looking up. Emma said her first daddy died, but our first daddy didn't die, right? My hand froze on the coffee pot. Tyler, sitting across from her, met my eyes. We talked about this. Knew it would come eventually. Had a plan. That's right, honey. Honey. Your biological father is still alive. But where is he? He's not in our lives anymore. He made some choices that hurt people, and he had to face consequences for those choices. Bad choices. Very bad choices. Is that why Daddy Tyler is our daddy now? Tyler answered that one. I'm your daddy because I love you and your mama and your brother and sister. Family isn't just about biology, sweetheart. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you. Lily thought about this for a minute. Then she went back to coloring. Okay, can I have a snack? Just like that, kids were resilient in ways adults could never be. But I knew this conversation would come again. Deeper, more complicated. When they were older, I'd tell them the truth. All of it. About Derek's betrayal, about the trial, about everything that had happened. They deserved to know their history, but they also deserved to grow up without that weight. To be kids first. To know they were loved without question or condition. That was the balance I tried to strike. Honest but age-appropriate. Truthful but protective. Sometimes I wondered if Derek thought about them. If he lay awake at night regretting what he'd thrown away. But mostly, I didn't think about Derek at all. He'd become like a character in a story I'd once read. Someone who used to be important but wasn't anymore. I'd rebuilt my career. Was now director of marketing for a different company. One where the CEO wasn't Derek's college friend. Made good money. Worked flexible hours. Had a team that respected me. Diane visited every Sunday for family dinner. She'd become Grandma Diane to all five kids. Not just the triplets. Spoiled them equally. Loved them fiercely. She and Tyler got along well. Both of them understanding that family was complicated, but worth fighting for. Jenna was still my best friend. Still the person I called when things got hard. Still the one who remembered where I'd been and never let me forget how far I'd come. Malcolm had moved on to other cases, but we stayed in touch. He'd become something like a friend. Someone who'd seen me at my worst and fought for me anyway. And Nurse Beth, she'd become one of my closest friends. Our kids played together. We had coffee every week. She'd been there at my lowest moment and had chosen to help. That kind of kindness didn't fade. One evening, Tyler and I were sitting on our back porch after all the kids were asleep. It was quiet, rare and precious. You okay? Tyler asked. Yeah, just thinking. About how different my life is now compared to what I thought it would be. I used to think I knew what happiness looked like. A husband, kids, a house, a career. I had all of that with Derek, and I was miserable. And now I have all of that again, but it's real this time. It's not a performance or an illusion. It's messy and complicated and sometimes really hard, but it's true. Tyler took my hand. You know what I think, what? I think you survived something that would have destroyed most people. And you didn't just survive, you thrived. You took 3 babies and raised them alone while fighting the hardest battle of your life. You never gave up. That's not just strength. Claire, that's heroic. I don't feel heroic. I feel like I just did what I had to do. That's exactly what makes it heroic. You didn't have a choice about surviving, but you had a choice about how you survived. And you chose to do it with grace and dignity and love. That matters. I leaned my head on his shoulder. I'm glad I met you. Me too. We sat there in comfortable silence, listening to the crickets, feeling the warm night air. This was peace. This was home. This was the life I'd built from ashes. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Plain envelope. Return address from the federal correctional facility where Derek was being held. I almost threw it away without opening it, but something made me hesitate. 4 years of silence. And now this. Tyler was at work. The kids were at school and daycare. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope for 5 minutes before finally opening it. Claire, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you've moved on and built a life without me. I know I destroyed everything we had and hurt you in ways I can never fix. But I need to ask something. I get out in 6 months. I've served my time. I've done the therapy, the programs, all of it. I'm different now. I see what I did. I understand how badly I failed you and our children. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking to be part of your life. I'm just asking if someday, when they're older, Lily and Mason and Harper might want to meet me. Not now, not soon, but someday. If they want to know who their biological father is, if they have questions, I want to be available for that. Not as their dad, I know. I gave up that right. Just as someone who can answer their questions honestly. I'm including my mother's contact information. If you ever decide the time is right, you can reach me through her. I won't contact you again unless you want me to. I wish you all the happiness in the world. You deserve it. Derek, I read it twice. Felt nothing but a distant sadness. Not for me, for him, for the life he could have had if he'd made different choices. I put the letter in my desk drawer. Didn't respond. Didn't plan to. But I kept it, because someday, maybe, Lily or Mason or Harper would ask. And when they did, I wanted to be able to show them that their biological father had, at least once, thought about them, cared enough to ask. That night, I told Tyler about the letter. What do you think, he asked. I think he's not my problem anymore. And I think if the kids want to meet him when they're adults, that's their choice. But right now, they're happy and safe and loved. That's what matters. Agreed. We never talked about it again. 6 months later, Derek was released. Diane told me, asked if I wanted to know where he was living. I said no. As long as he stayed away from us, I didn't care. He did stay away. Respected the boundaries. I had to give him that. Life continued. The triplets started kindergarten. Harper made friends instantly. Mason took his time, observing before joining in. Lily was somewhere in the middle, balancing boldness with caution. Emma graduated to middle school. Sophia started thinking about high school. They were growing up so fast. Tyler and I celebrated our 3rd wedding anniversary. Quiet dinner at home after the kids were asleep. Talking about everything and nothing. Making plans for the future. Discussing whether we wanted to try for another baby together or if 5 kids was already plenty. We decided 5 was plenty. Our family was complete as it was. One Saturday morning, I was cleaning out the garage when I found a box I didn't recognize. Old photos, mostly, from my marriage to Derek. Pictures I'd thought were destroyed in the fire, but apparently I'd stored in the garage before that. I sat on the garage floor, looking through them. Wedding photos, vacation pictures, moments I'd thought were happy. Looking at them now, I could see the truth I'd missed then. In every photo, Derek's smile didn't reach his eyes. His body language was always slightly turned away. Even in our wedding photos, he looked like he'd rather be somewhere else. How had I not seen it? But I knew the answer. I'd seen what I wanted to see, believed what I wanted to believe, made excuses for red flags because I was invested in the fairy tale. I didn't blame myself anymore. Not really. Yes, there had been signs, but Derek had worked hard to hide the truth. He'd been deliberate, calculated, careful. You can't see through someone determined to deceive you. All you can do is recognize the truth when it finally reveals itself and decide how to move forward. I threw the photos away. All of them. Didn't need them. Didn't want them. The past was past. That afternoon, all 5 kids were in the backyard. Emma and Sophia were teaching the triplets how to do cartwheels. Lily kept falling over, laughing every time. Mason tried once, decided it wasn't for him, and went back to his book. Harper did 3 in a row, proud as anything. Tyler came outside and stood next to me, watching them. They're happy, he said simply. Yeah, they are. You did that. You gave them that. After everything you went through, you gave them happiness. We did that, I corrected. You're just as much a part of this as I am. Still? No, you're pretty amazing. Claire Westbrook Grant. I smiled at the sound of my full name. I'd kept Westbrook for the triplets, wanted them to have that connection to their biological family, but I'd added Grant, Tyler's name, our name. I'm just a mom doing her best. You're more than that. You're proof that the worst thing that happens to you doesn't have to define you, that you can survive the impossible and come out better on the other side. I thought about that, about the woman I'd been 5 years ago, screaming in labor while her husband betrayed her, about the woman I'd become, stronger, yes, but also softer, more open, more willing to trust, even though trust had burned me before. I think, what I said slowly, that surviving isn't about becoming harder. It's about learning which parts of yourself to protect and which parts to share. Derek made me doubt everything, but I learned to trust myself again. That's the real victory. Tyler kissed my forehead. Wisdom looks good on you. We stood there watching our children play, and I felt it. That rare, perfect moment when everything aligns. When you realize that despite the pain, despite the struggle, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. 2 years later, the triplets were 7. Imama was in high school. Sophia was planning for college. Time, as it always does, kept moving forward. I got a call one Tuesday from Diane. She sounded upset. Claire, Derek wants to set up a trust fund for the triplets. Through me, he won't have any access, won't be able to contact them, just wants to provide for their future. College funds, essentially. He asked me to check with you first. I was quiet for a moment. How much? 200,000. Split 3 ways. He's been working construction since he got out. Saved every penny. He says it's the least he can do. What do you think? I think money is just money. It doesn't come with strings if we don't let it. And I think those kids deserve every advantage they can get. But it's your call. Claire, always your call. I thought about it for a week, discussed it with Tyler, finally decided that the money could go into accounts I controlled. The kids would get it when they turned 18. If Derek stayed away, if he respected boundaries, if he truly wanted to help without demanding anything in return, I could accept that. Not for him, for them. Diane set it up. Derek never contacted me directly, never asked for updates or photos, just put the money in trust and disappeared back into his own life. Maybe he really had changed. Maybe prison and consequences had taught him something. Or maybe this was just another manipulation, a long game I couldn't see yet. I didn't know, didn't particularly care. The money was protected. The kids were safe. That was all that mattered. Lily started asking more questions around that time. She was 7, old enough to understand that her family structure was different from some of her friends, that she had a biological father who wasn't Tyler, that there was history she didn't know. I told her the truth, age-appropriate version. But the truth, your biological father made some bad choices that hurt a lot of people, including me. He went to prison for those choices. He's out now, but he's not part of our lives. That doesn't mean he doesn't care about you, but it does mean that the family we have now is the one we chose. Does that make sense? Lily nodded slowly. Will I ever meet him? Maybe, when you're older, if you want to. That will be your choice. Do I have to? No, sweetheart. You never have to do anything you don't want to do. Not with this. Not ever. She seemed satisfied with that answer. Went back to playing. But I knew the questions would continue. Would get deeper and harder as she got older. That was okay. I'd answer them honestly. Give her the information she needed to make her own choices about her own life. Mason never asked. He was content with Tyler as his dad, with the family as it was. Didn't seem curious about Derek at all. Harper was somewhere in between. Occasionally curious, but not urgently so. Content to let it be a someday question rather than a two-day question. I let them lead, answered what they asked. Didn't volunteer information they weren't ready for. Let them grow into their own understanding at their own pace. That's what good parenting is. I'd learned. Not forcing, not hiding, just being honest and available and letting them figure it out in their own time. Tyler adopted them legally when they were 8 years old. Not to replace Derek, but to formalize what was already true, that he was their father in every way that mattered. The judge who processed the adoption was Judge Rita Holloway. She smiled when she saw us walk into her courtroom. "Mrs. Grant, it's good to see you again." "You too, Your Honor." She processed the paperwork quickly, efficiently. Then she looked at Lily, Mason, and Harper. "Do you three understand what's happening today?" They nodded. Lily spoke for all of them. "Daddy Tyler is becoming our legal dad, not just our real dad. And how do you feel about that?" "Good," Lily said simply. "He's the best dad." Judge Holloway smiled. "Then I'm happy to make this official." The gavel came down. Tyler cried. I cried. The kids didn't really understand why we were all so emotional, but they hugged us anyway. Afterward, Rita pulled me aside. "You've built something beautiful. Claire, I'm proud of you. Thank you for everything, for listening to the evidence when another judge might not have, for seeing the truth. I just did my job. You did the hard part. You surveyed." We hugged. Two women who'd known each other in different contexts, different times, connected by one terrible moment that had led to so much growth. 5 years after that courthouse victory, 10 years after the day my life imploded, I stood in my kitchen making breakfast for 7 people. Organized chaos. Emma arguing with Sophia about bathroom time. Mason quietly reading at the table. Harper and Lily fighting over the last waffle. Tyler managing coffee and trying to referee. This was my life. Messy, loud, imperfect, real. I thought about the woman I'd been. The one who believed marriage was about performance and happiness was about perfection. The one who ignored red flags because acknowledging them meant admitting failure. That woman was gone, burned away in the fire of betrayal and rebuilt from better materials. This woman knew that happiness wasn't about perfection. It was about authenticity, about building something real with someone who showed up every single day, about choosing trust even when trust had broken you before, about surviving the worst thing you could imagine and discovering you were stronger than you'd ever known. My phone buzzed. A text from Jenna Coffey. "Later I have gossip." I smiled and typed back, "Always." Life continued, ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. Full of little moments that didn't seem important until you strung them all together and realized they were everything. That's what I learned from surviving Derek's betrayal. That life isn't about the big dramatic moments. It's about the accumulation of small, honest, true ones. The morning waffles, the homework help, the bedtime stories, the quiet conversations with your partner after the kids are asleep, the friendships that endure, the family you choose and the one you build. Derek tried to destroy me, tried to take everything, and for a moment he succeeded. But I didn't stay destroyed. I rebuilt, brick by brick, day by day, choice by choice. I built something better than what I'd lost, something honest, something mine, and in the end, that was the greatest revenge. Not that he lost, but that I won. Not just custody or money or legal battles. I won my life back, won my future, won the right to be happy again. The prison door Derek tried to lock me in, it was always unlocked. I just had to find the courage to walk through it. And once I did, once I stepped out into the light, I discovered something beautiful. Freedom tastes like morning coffee in a kitchen full of children, like laughter over burnt waffles, like plans made with a partner who chooses you every single day, like ordinary moments strung together into an extraordinary life. I survived. I thrived. I won. And that, in the end, is everything.